So Paul Pierce wants an apology, Keefe. From Skip Bayless. I've been saying I don't really feel the need to apologize for a lot of stuff. I've said I've been wrong about a lot of things.
Yeah, of course.
But if you were going to be drawn to apologize for anything, or at least acknowledge your biggest mistake with the Celtics over the years, what would that be?
I think it goes back to draft night 2016. You and I together for the season ticket holder event at the TD Garden, and they were going through the draft. Ben Simmons goes 1, Brandon Ingram goes 2. Jaylen Brown goes 3, and I was like, oh, terrible. I don't want this guy. Take anybody else. Trade the pick. Why'd you take him? And he was, like, fine as a rookie. And you're like, okay, like, at that point, the take was still kind of up in the air.
Yeah.
And then you're like, all right, he's getting better. Oh, he's getting better every year? Oh, now he's All-NBA? Oh, now he's the Finals MVP?
Yeah, Finals MVP is where I said I can't fight that one anymore. Because, even Jamal Murray beating him to a title, it's like, all right. I mean, look, they could have had Murray.
That was probably as wrong as I think I've ever been when it comes to the draft as far as, like, I think this player would be good and then he's bad versus I think this player's going to be bad and he's good. Like, he's great. Like, he is a top, 20 player in the league probably, top 20. And
easy. I think we did this. We did this yesterday.
Did this? Okay.
I had him maybe 12 or 13. Like, I'm pretty comfortably in the top 15.
So, I mean, the league is really talented. But regardless, all right, so he's a top 15 player, and there's idiot me going, no, don't take him.
Don't you dare.
I don't like this pick at all. Boo! And I brought it up the other night because Jaylen Brown has referenced it several times. He's, like, getting booed on draft night. Like, he remembers there was a lot of people booing him, right? It wasn't a unique take to not like the Jaylen Brown pick because they were like, you might get Paul George, you might get Jimmy Butler,
right?
You might get, people liked Jamal Murray or Buddy Hield. Some people like Chris Dunn, for God's sakes, or Dragon Bender. But definitely for me, Jaylen Brown, I was way off on that.
Well, and so you just said it, but like the reason most people were booing it, and that was not my favorite pick. I wanted Murray in that draft.
Yeah.
Again, Murray's been a good player. I would rather have Jaylen Brown. Based on this postseason run, I would rather have Jaylen Brown. I was wrong about that.
Yeah.
But what people were booing was we all thought they were trading for a superstar.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. We all thought they were getting Jimmy Butler. We all thought they were getting Paul George, as you just said. So, like, that's really what people were booing. It wasn't booing Jaylen. That's really what people, were booing at the time.
And it was a weird spot because that was viewed as a two-player draft. Right, and it was Ben Simmons was kind of the unanimous number 1, but there were people that liked Ingram.
Yep.
And then you're like, you ask 5 teams, they might have 5 different guys at number 3 overall. Celtics went with Jaylen Brown, and he was fresh off of these horrible tournament games. The NCAA tournament, he sucked. The Pac-12 tournament, he sucked. So if you even paid attention to it, you're like, I don't like this guy.
You said something from Ainge today. Did Shaughnessy talk to Ainge? That's who it was?
Yes.
You said something that Shaughnessy talked to Ainge, and Ainge was like, yeah, he had a terrible second half.
Yeah.
And he's like, we still believed in him. I still liked him. We as a group, meaning the whole front office, still believed in him. But, like, he had a bad second half. I mean, that's something Ainge says to this day.
Yeah.
He's like, we had conviction in the pick, so we made it. So I found that interesting, an interesting acknowledgement from Ainge today.
Yeah, he said Murray was a strong consideration, but after Jaylen's draft workouts in Boston, it was unanimous that Jaylen was our guy. I think everybody has a Jaylen Brown take they'd like to have back. Mine certainly was, and you remember this, Jones, the idea of trading him for – I can't even say. For Ben Simmons?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was a bad one.
That
may be the worst you could possibly have. We had all different names that we threw around, and it was at a point where I thought that this thing wasn't going to work, that this partnership just wasn't working out. Right around 2019 or 2020, I forget exactly what year it was that I said that horrible take, but that was sort of the point, is that it just seemed like there was this feeling of despair, is that you did all this, and you made all these trades, and you traded Pierce and Garnett, and you got all these draft picks, and you held on to them and did all this stuff, and it's just not good enough. And that sort of seemed like what it was. My worst take, though, of this year, I'd say, is probably that they can't win without Porzingis. I thought there's no way they're going to actually win the whole thing if Porzingis isn't there, and they did not miss him at any point in the season that he wasn't there. Seemed like they didn't miss him at all.
So my worst probably was the Jaylen Brown draft night. I'm with you on that since we were both there for that. I have also traded Jaylen for so many players. I'm not sure I ever quite got to Ben Simmons, but
that is low.
But there were a lot of names. So
Not proud of it.
I probably did it for Durant 3 or 4 different times, specifically Durant, which was wrong.
I think
Paul
Danny
George,
probably did it for Durant.
Seriously, Anthony Davis. Like, there's a million of them. Okay, so I have a lot of Jaylen ones, but just to pivot away from Jaylen focused, I thought Brad was going to be terrible at this job, and I didn't think he wanted it. I didn't think the team really felt strongly about him. I just felt like they were done with Ainge. I thought the players might have been done with Ainge. Ainge got shoved out. They needed somebody to move in there, and they said, well, Brad still has term on his deal.
Ainge retired, remember?
Well, Ainge, right.
He retired.
Ainge pseudo-retired.
And then he came out of retirement a week later for the Jazz.
They shoved, right. It was like Brady spending too much time with his kids and retiring. He's too much time with the grandkids.
Yep.
Unretired. And I thought Stevens was going to be bad at this job. I didn't even think he was going to stay in it. I thought he would do the job for a year and then go to college and coach, or go coach another NBA team.
I thought 100% he was going to take over for Coach K at Duke.
And
I thought he was going to do this job for the rest of his contract because they were paying him a ton of money. And then it wasn't going to go great. I'm with you. And then he was going to go coach Duke. I for sure thought he was going to be a college coach by this time.
Same.
Like 100%.
And so I didn't really like his first trade. Like, I like getting rid of Kemba. I didn't think getting Horford was going to do anything. Like, obviously I was wrong about that. To Arcand's point, they didn't need Porzingis to win in part because they had Al Horford and they got him all those years ago, got him back all those years ago. I didn't really love the Derek White trade when he made it. Like, I didn't really get it. I'm like, he's a rotation player. He's a bench player. And it turns out he's much more than that. And so, you know, to me, when I look back at it, I got a lot of stuff wrong about Jalen. I didn't know if Jalen and Tatum would work as a duo. I didn't know if they played well enough off one another to win a title. I think Brad Stevens would be top of my list because I mean, he might be the best executive in the sport, and I didn't think he'd do it for longer than a year.
No, he's fantastic at it. And one of his moves was having to replace Ime Udoka in a bizarre situation. Puts in Joe Mazzulla. I did not like Joe Mazzulla his first year. So going into this year, I think there were, we all had those shows like, all right, well, what's standing in the way or what's going to slow down the Celtics? I only had two things. Joe Mazzulla and Kristaps Porzingis injury history.
His health, yeah.
And so he missed a bunch of games, didn't matter. I really thought, not that coaching's the be-all, end-all in the NBA, obviously it isn't, but I thought he might get in the way of a game or two, and not at all. We didn't spend a second this season, or I should say like second half of the season playoffs, being like, where were the timeouts? What was this rotation about? We didn't do any of that. He was great. Like, what we talked about is like odd responses and press conferences, like sort of the character that he is, but not like, what are you holding on to the timeouts for, Joe? So that was another one I questioned big time going into the season, and then he proved me wrong.
Even the odd comments have become more endearing.
Because they win.
Yeah,
100%.
Right. It's like purely just about them winning, but like, and I get that, but yeah.
No, now he's an odd duck, but he's our odd duck.
Yeah, no, exactly. Even the odd duck stuff, I feel like his PMT appearance the other day was great. You said you were listening to him with Zach Lowe. Like he had some interesting stuff to say.